How's it going, everybody? Today I'm here with my friend Kajwa, who has been selling Amazon for several years now. I'm super excited to get into his journey as an Amazon seller, and recently he's been focused on doing brand direct wholesale, just a unique angle on selling on Amazon, up to about $400,000 in sales so far this year. Super excited to have you on the channel today, Kajwa. If you want to introduce yourself, maybe let us know how you got into the crazy world of selling stuff online. Super pumped to get into all the nitty gritty kind of tactical detail for people.
Yeah, 100%. Thanks for having me. It was funny, like you were saying, I've had you on my podcast and somehow we missed having me on your channel. So I'm super excited to get to chop it up and share this sauce with your audience. I started selling on Amazon in 2017. Me and my business partner, Josh, who you also know, we've always been 50-50 partners in this business since we started. And it's actually, so the background to the story of entrepreneurship is funny. So in high school, me and Josh both were involved in like a multi-level marketing. That was our first eye-opening experience into there's a way to make money that's not clocking in and clocking out. Obviously, that was not successful.
Right. Yeah.
But it was like that kind of got the wheels turning. Okay, there are other ways to make money. And I remember, so 2017, we were both still in college at the time. And Josh literally sent me a YouTube video of this guy. I don't even know if he still makes YouTube videos. Tanner Fox. He had a private label course on how to launch a private label product on Amazon. Course was $500. Josh was like, I think we can do this. And I remember just emailing him back and being like, I think we can. Honestly, let's just give it a shot. So within a couple weeks, we started the LLC, started doing keyword research, reached out to suppliers on Alibaba, launched one private label product that did okay, didn't make money, but we didn't really lose a lot of money. It was maybe a couple grand investment, good learning experience, but it was proof of concept. And then our second private label product actually did decently well. We sold, I want to say, somewhere between 9,000 to 10,000 units of that.
Damn, yeah, a lot of people will be very happy with that.
Yes, and it was crazy because we did at least 2 full container loads from China directly into Amazon. So it was crazy. Like we figured it out. It was by no means something that at that point was going to allow us to quit the 9 to 5 or go full time, but it was like very strong proof of concept that selling on Amazon works. Something called COVID happened, and then the global supply chain exploded. That product was no longer profitable. And that's when we switched into arbitrage. So our story is kind of a little bit backwards. Started private label because that was the only way we knew how to sell on Amazon. Then we found out about arbitrage later. And then that's actually when we found your content and Flips for Miles content, which at that point you were still in the college.
Probably had the mattress behind me.
Yeah, not falling out in Miami. But yeah, we consumed a lot of your content, a lot of Miles's content, did a little bit of retail arbitrage, pivoted to OA, scaled up OA in 2021 to I think $500,000 in total revenue, something like that. 2023, we started doing a mix of OA and normal wholesale. I think 2023 was our first $1 million year. 2024 was like 80% wholesale, some brand direct, some normal wholesale, a little bit of OA. And then now 2025, we're not doing any more OA. It's 80% brand direct. We have one distributor that we still work with. And our goal is just focusing on growing our current brand partners. And then this year, our target is to do about 1.25 to 1.5 million in total revenue. And our gross margins are pretty healthy, around like 18 to 20%.
Nice. Yeah. That's funny. You coming into Amazon, like making your own product. Normally people say, oh, I went to Walmart and scanned something. And now you're like, no, I'm gonna buy a container load.
Yeah. It was scary because at that point, also like not having the arbitrage background, like in arbitrage, it's very normal to use credit cards to leverage debt to figure that stuff out. But me and Josh, we're both blessed to have savings, have work, have some family members that are also aware of the business and help invest with us. But it was like we were putting up cash and just sending it via Alibaba to some random person in Shenzhen, China. Like, I hope they send us the product, but it worked out.
Yeah. So I assume if you had to do it all over again, because most people who are watching, they're curious on the how do I get started now? And of course, we're going to break down all the tactical. I assume you'd maybe not buy the container loads full of stuff. Would you do some arbitrage, or are you happy with how things started like that?
It's one of those things where like the journey made you who you are. And there's so many things about it. So I wouldn't change the journey, but if I had to do it over again, so there's definitely a lot of value in what we learned about private label, because the skills of listing optimization, running PPC, all those things are things we learned from private label. But I probably would have maybe taken a course on how to learn those things and then started doing brand direct right away then. Because the other thing with private label is your cash flow cycle is super long versus OA. And this is one of the beautiful things about OA and why you have the Chad scalers in OA, because you can buy something, receive it within a couple days, get it to Amazon within a couple days, and have it sell really quick. So that feedback loop is fast. In private label, you're looking at a couple months of product research, 30 days to get a couple samples back and forth and actually get the product ready to manufacture, another 30 days to get a full manufacturing line done, another 30 days for it to get from China to the US. So it's like that feedback loop's just really slow, but brand direct's kind of like a happy medium of the two, where you're almost treating the listing like it's your own private label product, you're doing the ads, you're doing the listing optimization. But instead of having to wait 3 to 6 months for the product to get manufactured, you're buying directly from the brand that is preferably US based, and then you're going from there.
Yeah, that's awesome. And if any of you guys are brand new, arbitrage OA, that's basically just buying from websites, flipping it on Amazon. So nothing too fancy there. A lot of people use it as a stepping stone, but I think it's interesting that you say you would get started directly with doing brand direct wholesale. So I know that's your big passion. So I'm excited to jam on some value there. Do you do any wholesale working with distributors? Because I think that's still the more popular way to do it. What is the breakdown there for your business?
Yeah, we literally have one distributor that we work with right now. I don't think I've called a distributor in over a year. We've just been calling brands. And I also recommend, this is a good beginner tip as well. Like for someone who's just starting selling on Amazon and they want to go straight into wholesale, or if they're doing OA and they want to add wholesale or pivot to wholesale, call brands, don't call distributors. Like you can call distributors, and I'm not even saying don't work with distributors, but the best way to find distributors, in my opinion, is through the brand. Because one of the things that Amazon really wants now is a clean supply chain. So just making sure that the product came directly from the brand. And so instead of calling a distributor and then saying, hey, where'd you get your product from? They might not want to answer that question. If you call the brand, best case scenario, you get an account directly with the brand, you open the account, you buy from the brand, best case scenario. If they don't want to sell to you, you can ask them to refer you to their distributors that service your region. And then because the brand recommended the distributor, that's essentially the vetting process. That distributor's legit.
You still might as well get some profitable stuff loaded up there, right? Best case scenario, you get the best prices. Worst case scenario, they say, hey, you can't buy from us, but there might be some margin left from this guy. We trust this guy. I just think it's really cool, going back a little bit, but like when you're jumping in and calling brands right away and you're buying containers as a new Amazon. So I think a lot of very successful entrepreneurs just in general I talk to, they are very much, I'm going to make the sales, I'm going to buy the thing, and I'm going to figure out all the nitty gritty later, right? You had the confidence to buy a container. You guys should have the confidence to go call that brand. Whatever kind of that scary, hard thing to do is, that's usually where like success is hiding behind.
100%. Yeah. You've got to be willing to just send it. If you're not willing to do that and you have analysis paralysis, you're never going to take action and actually have success.
Yeah. So like what type of person does find success on Amazon in your opinion? Obviously we've talked about action takers, but is there anything else that stuck out to you? Obviously I know you help a lot of Amazon sellers now as well. Like who is a good Amazon seller if they're watching this?
Yeah. I think the main thing really is the action taker piece, right? If you're not taking action, you're not going to see results. If you're not going to call brands, if you're not going to send the emails, if you're not going to do the product research, you're not going to have success. If you're only in analysis paralysis and you're always only studying, but not actually implementing, you're not going to see success. The other thing as well is it's not just the people who take action, but take action quickly and learn from that action. So you're not going to be perfect when you start. You're going to make mistakes, but we learn the best by doing. So when you do it, maybe the first time you're like 50% of the way there, and then you self-reflect, you talk with your coach, you talk with your community or whoever else you know you're in contact with, get a little bit of feedback, improve. So the next time, maybe you're 55% of the way there. But then more calls you make, the more products you look at, eventually you're going to get your skill level up to that A+ place faster, versus if you're only studying, you think you're actually improving your skill set, but you're really not.
Yeah, for sure. I've heard the term like increasing the surface area of your luck, which I think is very applicable to brand direct wholesale. I think it's a good pivot to get into. Like, all right, I'm watching this. I know I need to take action, but how are you actually going out and taking action? How are you finding these people to call on the phone?
Yeah. So my favorite way to find brands is using Smart Scout tool. I'm sure some of your channel watchers are familiar with. Is that what YouTubers say? Channel watchers, viewers? Because for me, it's like podcast listeners.
I don't know. Maybe not like a super YouTuber-y community with just helping people sell online.
Yeah. But anyway, for people who, I'm sure you've talked about Smart Scout before, maybe. But yeah, that's my favorite tool to use to find brands. So Smart Scout has really good brand level data that a lot of other tools don't have. And so you can put in different filters to look for brands within a certain revenue range that have a certain amount of sellers on their listings. And then simply just look up their website, pull their phone number. You can use AI tools to help scrape contact information. You can look up the people who work at that company on LinkedIn, send them a message. And then the best way is then looking for local brands as well. And if you're able to pull up in person or go to niche trade shows and meet them in person, that's the best. Because with brand direct, and it's the same with wholesale in general, but especially with brand direct, if you want an exclusive relationship, that in-person relationship, you can't replicate that sort of rapport over the phone.
Interesting. Is it like a good percentage of the brands you've had success with that you've had to meet in person at some point?
Yeah. So the very first wholesale account that I got, which wasn't a brand, but to make a long story short, we did exactly what I was saying before. We called a brand. They're way too big for us to buy from directly. Asked for their distributor. Their distributor happened to be 5 minutes away from where Josh lives, which we've driven past like our whole lives and had no idea. So we just pulled up. They were super confused about what we were doing and what e-commerce and Amazon selling was. But we had a nice conversation with one of their sales reps for 20, 30 minutes and we got the account, right? So just pulling up, got the account. That's how we did it that time. Right before this meeting, I had a call just to touch base with one of my brand partners that's local to me. And they're about 45 minutes away. I've probably been to their warehouse, I don't know, 9 or 10 times at this point. But in the beginning, it was like we had phone calls, Zoom meetings. I went and met them multiple times just to build that trust, because they've had multiple bad experience with Amazon sellers. So he was very apprehensive. And I am 100% certain that if I wasn't local and wasn't going to his warehouse and having conversations face to face, that the relationship would not have happened.
That makes total sense. And yeah, all you guys watching, you're in your own unique pocket of the country, right? You're going to have those opportunities. He was close to that opportunity. You're close to an opportunity. So whatever that is, are you just literally looking up like brand headquarters on Google, or like how are you finding out what brands are actually located near you? Because with distributors, it's a little easier. Just distributor into Google Maps, but people, it's not quite as easy to like filter that.
Yeah. So I'm not specifically just going and looking for brands that are local to me. I found that if you just do a lot of research, you're going to end up stumbling across brands that are local to you. Now, I'm sure that changes based on where you are. Like for me, I'm near Philadelphia, so I'm in a hub next to a big city. So there's a lot of business around where I am. If you're in Florida, California, New York, New Jersey, Texas, Midwest, wherever, just around cities, then you'll probably have that happen more often. If you're in the middle of nowhere, you might have to do a little bit more work for that. But I just find if I am always doing a lot of research, I end up stumbling upon some local gems.
Interesting. Yeah. Maybe not if you're in the panhandle of Oklahoma watching this. You might have to drive a little bit further, that kind of thing. But
a little bit, right. Yeah. There was a guy in one of my students in the Wholesale network who this weekend, I believe, he's driving 3 hours to meet with the brand that he's been working with to try and lock in an exclusive. And he also shared that there's another brand he's flying out. So I think he's somewhere in the Midwest, flying out to Cali to meet with them to try and lock in the exclusive, right? Because he understands it. He gets it. He's also face-to-face communicator, similar to I am. And the relationship's already going good. And I know that if I have a sit-down conversation with them, it's a wrap. So he's like, I'm just going to fly out.
You got to fly out to meet the girl. No more virtual dates, something like that. And I'm curious to see like what you'd estimate your success rate is with those. Obviously, you're going to get told no. So all of you guys watching, if you're curious about getting into wholesale, like if you had to put a number on it, how much should people expect to get denied?
Yeah. So in the beginning, it's going to be very high. I recommend people get to their first 100 contacts as quickly as possible just to sharpen the skill set. Because out of that first 100, different people are going to be naturally better than others. So it'll vary. But out of that first 100, I would say expect to open somewhere between maybe 10 to 20 accounts if you're decent. And then maybe a handful of those are actually going to be profitable and long term. Versus now for me, like most of my I don't really even do that much outreach right now because I do my outreach in cycles. So I did a lot of outreach in January, got 3 new brand partners, and then have been focusing on updating their listings, figuring out PPC, getting them fully onboarded into our systems. And then once they're good to go, then I'll do another round of outreach, find another couple brand partners and do it like that.
Gotcha. Yeah. Walk me through like your absolute worst conversation you've ever had. Just because I know people are going to end up having some of those and be like, oh, I'm throwing in the towel. And you're going to have some of those horrible moments and you're still going to be able to find success like you have. What's that worst moment that comes to mind?
Yeah, I haven't had a ton of like crazy bad experiences, but I've had multiple ones where it's like, you can tell that they've talked to Amazon sellers before. They want absolutely nothing to do with you. They're just trying to get you off the phone. Like I've had people curse at me before. I'm not even like saying anything crazy. I'm just asking questions, trying to understand their pain points. And they're just so triggered by the fact that I'm e-commerce at Amazon. And then they just end up hanging up on me. Like, it's one of those things like in the middle of the phone call, it sucks. It's definitely not fun, but in the grand scheme of life, it's not that big of a deal.
Sure. Yeah, that's funny. So let's get into it. So we know how to find those brands, that kind of thing. When you're having those conversations, the ones that they're not screaming at you and cussing at you, that kind of thing. I know you've mentioned PPC and listing optimization, that kind of thing. What are those conversations like? Those successful conversations that you're able to offer value?
Yes. So one thing that I've noticed with people who are doing or trying to do brand direct, starting out in brand direct, is they pitch too much value too fast. It's brand direct, especially if you're going for an exclusive relationship where you're the only person selling their products on Amazon, which is what I'm always shooting for. That's a long game and it's a relationship building game before it's an offering value. So you have to understand what issues, or the phrase I like to use is pain points, what pain points the brand is perceiving on their end, and then offer value to match and fix those things.
Yeah. So you got people out here proposing on the first virtual date then, if we're going with
100%
the dating analogy.
Yes. If we're going with the dating analogy, you got people, their profile picture is them on one knee with their I'm like, all right, So the first thing I like to say is just get the account open. Get the account open, place the first order, even if it's break even. Show them that you're a legit business. Show them that you actually want to buy their product, that you're invested in that relationship. And then a couple conversations in, you can say, hey, what's your strategy with e-commerce? How are things going for you on the website? Do you have a strategy on Amazon? Do you have a strategy on Walmart? And then see what they say from there. And if the topic of Amazon comes up, which it should, because that's what we're targeting, you can ask them, what's your experience with Amazon sellers been? And I'm sure that they'll go off on a rant about how terrible their experience with Amazon sellers has been. And then from there, you can gather what their pain points are, what their perspective is, and then get the conversation rolling from there.
Interesting. Yeah. What's like the most common complaint you hear?
So most of it when it comes to Amazon sellers is they're unprofessional. So communication sucks. A lot of Amazon sellers, like I just mentioned about that value pitch, it's all about me. So it's, I can do this for you. I want this. It's not about actually hearing out the brand. So that's why brands a lot of times don't want to work with that kind of person, because they're like, this person actually, they can tell that person only is in it for themselves, not to actually help the brand. Not following MAP, that's always a big one. So MAP is minimum advertised pricing. So that's the brand saying, whether it's their own website, whether it's brick and mortar stores, whether it's Amazon, wherever, it's, hey, don't go below this certain price. So that way we can hold the brand value. This is another big issue that brands will have. If they're in like a Walmart or a mom and pop brick and mortar store, if their MAP pricing is $30, but then the Amazon listing is tanking because all the Amazon sellers aren't following MAP and it's priced at $20 on Amazon, that now affects their brick and mortar partners. Because if I go into the store looking for that brand's product, it's $30 in store, but $20 on Amazon, I'm probably going to buy it on Amazon. So now that brick and mortar store is getting less sales and they realize it's because of Amazon, and then now they're mad at the brand. So it's not only just messing up Amazon, it's messing up their other business relationships. And a lot of Amazon sellers don't think about that bigger picture. So not being professional, bad communication, only being about me, not following MAP pricing, not paying invoices all the time, just like the basics.
Yeah, I've done a little bit of brand direct myself, and I've had success getting a little bit more of the sales for myself, saying, hey, here's some storefronts that are under your MAP price. I want to keep your MAP price, but we can't sell it. And then they're like, all right, thanks for letting us know. I assume you've done a little bit of that as well.
Yes, that's a huge tip. So that's one thing that we do for not all, but quite a few of our brand partners, where we'll monitor MAP pricing for them. And that's one way how we've gotten one brand where, first off, they didn't want to open the account with us, but we got the account. They were like, definitely not semi-exclusive, but now they're understanding how MAP is damaging their sales and ability to do advertising on Amazon. So now they want to go semi-exclusive. And part of what we've been doing is sending them a monthly report of sales, of who is on the listing, who's breaking MAP. And then now they're like, okay, we'll go and take care of those guys.
Interesting. Yeah. It's being a professional narc.
Yeah. Got to keep tabs on who's messing things up.
But it pays off, I would assume. Yeah. Sweet. So I know, especially when it comes to working with these brands, how common is it for you to, you said you can get the price sheets, that kind of thing, to open the price sheet and it's just immediately profitable? Because I think that's the misconception from a lot of people is, there's just a ton of profit sitting on the price sheet. Like, how much of that profit is created through the relationship or whatever that might be?
Yeah. So I would say there's kind of two stages to it. So one is, if the brand gives you the price sheet on the first email or the first phone call, then the likelihood that it's going to be profitable is probably also low, because that means anyone who calls them is getting a price sheet. And that means there are probably a lot of sellers on the listing, which basic supply and demand, and we've all seen the keeper graph, means that it's probably going to tank enough.
Hey, I think that applies to the dating analogy too.
That's one kind of brand. Another kind of brand is if you have to follow up with them for a long time, like multiple months, even maybe pushing a year before you get a price list and open the account, that one will probably be profitable. But in both scenarios, you're going to have to work on the relationship to make it profitable. So in the first scenario, that's one where, again, the brand that I just recently mentioned, we've been selling that product pretty much at break even for over 6 months now, 6-7 months, something like that. But it's because we knew that if we're able to get the semi-exclusive and get their pricing up to MAP or even higher than MAP, that's where it becomes profitable. So for us, it's the long game. It's like, all right, we're not going to make profit on this brand for right now, but then once we do, we know that it's going to make sense long term. In the second scenario, it's you're doing a lot of follow-up. You're not even selling the product, but then once you finally get that price list, then it becomes profitable.
Gotcha. So when you call and they say no and you're going to continue to do follow-up, is there ever a point where it's, I'm not going to worry about any follow-up, or is it just relentless with all the opportunities?
It depends on how bad I want brand, right? So there's a couple that I know, like I'm just going to always hit up every couple months, just because it's like a lot of it is timing too. And you can't control the timing for the brand, but what you can control is being top of mind. So that way, when or if the timing is right, the first person they think of is as you. So there are a couple brands where I'm like, there's probably a low chance that I'm ever going to get this account, but I'm just going to keep sending quarterly email, because if I do get the account, it'd be an absolute game changer.
Yeah, I'm buying a new house if this ever works,
Exactly.
basically. Yeah.
And there's some where it's like just an ego thing, where it's I really probably shouldn't be putting effort into follow up because it wouldn't really move the needle that much. But now I'm just pissed that they're ignoring me.
So you're out there behind the window with the ukulele in the rain, basically.
That's the analogy there.
Gotcha. That makes total sense. It's a risk reward, basically. Am I going to waste a bunch of time on the phone for $5,000 a month? Probably not. But that crazy brand, yeah, that makes total sense. Sweet. And I know you and I were talking a little bit about something that was interesting. I haven't heard other people who are doing wholesale talk about trying to get like a piece of the company they're working with. Since you're basically almost like the Amazon marketing wing for a lot of these brands, how would that conversation work? And talk me through the process of maybe getting equity in one of these brands.
Yeah, for sure. So the first place I got this idea was from a guy named Steve Roll. Yeah, he was a big private label guy. I believe he exited his brand. Now he does consulting and some other business stuff too. He might have even started another brand. But from the podcast episode I did with him is when the ideas started rolling, or maybe it was a conversation on Twitter, I forget. But essentially it's just, you have the private label truthers, right, on Twitter, who are always talking bad on the resellers about how they don't have ownership, which that's a whole different conversation. But there is an element of truth to that. You're not building real enterprise value. Like your company itself, the value isn't increasing. You have a great cash flow machine, which is awesome. And that's the goal for some people. But in the brand direct space, like part of what I'm doing and why I pivoted this is I want to build a company that in itself has value. Even if I don't want to sell the company, just like the idea of building a healthy company means it's going to run better and it'll be less stress on my life. So one way of doing that is the exclusivity contract, because that relationship in itself is valuable. But two is also getting minority ownership or equity in the brand partners that I'm selling. And the reason for that is why not, right? It's just something that a lot of people haven't thought about. But for me, there's another side of it too. Obviously there's the Amazon branch, but another thing that I'm very interested in is like the UGC marketing, the TikTok marketing, that sort of thing. And some of the brands that I work with, like digital marketing just is not their strong suit. And I would like to help them in that, but something that doesn't really make sense for me to do to market on that channel and push sales towards their website.
You got nothing going on because you're just the Amazon guy. Yeah,
exactly. And it also, one, it's going to strengthen the relationship. The likelihood that they're going to fire me is very low. And I also know that some of these brands, like they just have, the owners they're on the older side, maybe thinking of retiring at some point. So they're going to exit or give it to somebody. And even if I don't get 100% equity, it would just be cool to have part of that equity and not only make profits from the Amazon side of things, but from the company profits as a whole.
Yeah, that makes total sense. So you walk in and say, hey, all right, let me do your TikTok dances for you.
Exactly.
Obviously, a little bit more goes into it than that, but that's really interesting. I'm excited to see how that goes for you, because that's a big thing I'm really passionate about, is like building that cash flow machine, whether that's arbitrage, wholesale, hell, even selling books, that kind of thing. Taking that and turning that into something that's actually sellable eventually is how you build that long.
Exactly. And again, so this isn't something for listeners. This is not something that I've done. This is something I'm thinking about doing, and hopefully we'll get those conversations started within the next couple months and see some fruit from that within the year. But I know, at least for me, and I feel like a lot of entrepreneurs like this, the first business you start is like your baby and you don't really want to sell it. I don't want to sell that first business, but what I would like to do is maybe get full equity of one of these brands and then 10x the brand and then just sell that one brand and get an exit that way. I think that would be pretty cool.
That's really interesting. Yeah. Well, to enact your master plan there, we'll have to have you back on and have you talk through it, because that'd be a really interesting conversation. So another thing within that conversation of adding brand value, you mentioned a little bit of like PPC, pay-per-click ads, that kind of stuff. That's something I've played with a little bit, but talk me through your strategy, because most people, when they're looking at it, there's not enough margin left for me to buy ads on this brand. Like, when is it a good product for you to try that?
Yeah. So the margin piece, that's very important, right? And that's one of the reasons, one thing that I like to pitch to brands, not at the beginning when I first email them or call them, like few conversations in, but it gives value to the exclusivity pitch, because it's, hey, so a couple things. One, when the buy box is rotating, I'm not going to be able to run 100% of the time, because you can only run PPC while you're in the buy box. So I'm like, hey, none of your other guys are running PPC. If I only get 20% of the buy box, like we're missing out on so much more ad testing that I can do. So that's one side of it. And the other side of it is getting that product up to map or above map. Because I'm like, hey, like I would love to spend more on PPC, but the unit economics just don't work out. So like we need to figure out how we can raise the price so I can test more money. And going back to that other product too, like that's one of the first things I pitched with that brand. And what I did once I had exclusivity is I raised their price $10. Market didn't mind, sales rank didn't change, but that gave me more room to not only profit, but also to run ads. In terms of strategy, so every seller, OA, FBA, book, whatever, needs to be running an auto PPC campaign. Very easy to set up. I know Corey's got a video on it.
Yeah, go watch the Corey Gannon video after this.
I should have a video on it. I don't know why I don't, but Corey has one. So just search Corey Gannon PPC. It takes 3 to 4 minutes to set up. You can set a super low bid. So like 3 to 5 cents, I think is what he recommends. That's normally what I do too. And then that will get you some extra sales and get your feet wet in PPC. Another thing that you can do if it's a brand exclusive or semi-exclusive, set up another auto campaign with a higher bid, maybe a 50-cent bid or a dollar bid. And then the next step from there is getting into exact campaigns. So this is something we have a YouTube video dropping, like a intro to brand direct course, where we go a little bit more into setting up the PPC campaigns. But if you just YouTube Amazon PPC, there's so many videos out there on it. And a lot of people I feel are scared of PPC, but it's like your first FBA shipment, right? Like the first time you do an FBA shipment, you're totally lost. You don't know what an FNSKU label is. You've never heard of a poly bag before. What's it?
Everything about this business is rocket science until you do it once. And then it's
exactly.
All right, yeah, I can do that again.
Yeah. And of course there are levels to it, right? It's not quite the same as the FBA shipment, because once you do an FBA shipment once, it's okay, you get it. There are many layers to PPC, but like level 1 and 2 of being proficient isn't that.
Yeah, that makes total sense. Kind of something that you can definitely add a lot of value to those brands. And that's interesting the way you're talking about how we be able to sneak your way into those exclusivity conversations, because hey, we can do a lot more ad testing. Your brand can be a lot better if we're able to test ads more often. Yeah, I had never really thought about that as like a feature of it. Yeah,
yeah,
makes total
especially
sense.
When you first start off with that auto PPC campaign with a low bid, it's like there's a lot of low hanging fruit keywords that these brands just are not bidding on. So when we send them the monthly report of like, hey, we spent this much on ads and got this many extra sales,
right?
And then like, why would you not want me to take over more PPC for you? It's a really good sell.
That's awesome. Yeah, I think there's been a lot of value for people trying to get into wholesale, but just because the majority of people watching this are probably resellers right now, arbitrage, that kind of thing, what would be the 1 or 2 very simple action items you want to leave people with if they're wanting to transition or even just add wholesale into their existing business?
Call all of the brands that you're already selling.
Yeah.
My very first brand exclusive account, which is one of our easiest accounts to manage right now. When I say easy, like we're still doing stuff for them. We're still updating listings and figuring out PPC and trying different strategies. But for the most part, it's optimized and we just place that PO every single month. Profit margins are like 20, 25%. That product, we started by selling it OA and then called them, got a wholesale account over a few months, had a conversation about exclusivity and then got it locked in. And it's awesome. So again, started selling that product OA, wasn't doing anything crazy then, but then we built them up, scaled them up. So it happened for me. And I know it can work for other people too.
Yeah.
And actually both my first brand exclusive and my first distributor account came from directly calling the brand of a product I was selling.
It's that low hanging fruit just sitting right there for you. Yeah. Sweet. Yeah. So I really appreciate you dropping a bunch of value for us today, Kaj. I know you are working within the Wholesale Network, which is a really awesome kind of community that helps people get started in wholesale. Can you tell me a little bit about that?
Yeah. So me, Corey Gannon, and Jonah Hodges are working together on that. We got a couple other people in there as well that are helping you coach, but we've been doing that for about 1.5 years and we're helping people scale up to 7-figure sellers and wholesale with brand direct. And we also have a mastermind tier for people who are already 7 figures and above and do group buys there as well as help coach on brand direct.
Awesome. Yeah. Lots of great resources in there. I'm in there every now and then. So go check them out if you are serious about getting into a wholesale. And if people want to reach out directly to you, Kaj, shoot you a question, that kind of thing, where can they find you on socials?
Yep. So my handles right there is just my full name at Kajua Robinson, Cajua Robinson. Most active on X and Instagram, but also on YouTube, TikTok, LinkedIn.
Awesome. Yeah. I'll drop all those links down below for you guys. I really appreciate all you guys watching this video. Drop any questions, anything like that you got down below. Make sure you go drop Kaj a follow, all that good stuff. I really appreciate you watching though. Thanks again for your time, man. And I will see you guys again very soon.
Appreciate it.